Sandra tried to hide her fear for years, but Keanu saw the truth the moment she stepped onto the farm. What he did next changed the part of her she never talked about. She didn't come here to ride a horse. Sandra came because she was breaking inside.
She thought she could hide her fear, but Keanu saw everything in her eyes. The farm was silent, but Sandra's heart was not. The afternoon sun rested softly on the old wooden fences as Sandra stepped out of the car, her breath shaky in a way she hoped no one would notice. The farm stretched wide around her, golden grass swaying in slow waves, the faint scent of hay in the air, and the quiet rumble of horses moving somewhere behind the stables. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. Not today. Not with the weight she'd been carrying so tightly inside that even breathing felt like an effort. Keanu walked beside her, not asking questions, not pushing for explanations. He didn't need to. He had seen the tremor in her hands earlier, the way she avoided the mirror, the moment her smile failed to reach her eyes. He recognized a heart trying too hard to stay steady. And instead of asking what broke inside her, he brought her here, the only place he believed silence could speak louder than words. Sandra kept her arms folded, trying to hide the storm inside. "I don't know if this is a good idea," she murmured, watching a chestnut horse lift its head to look at her. Its calm, curious eyes felt almost too gentle for the state she was in. She hadn't touched a horse in years, not since a moment she tried not to remember, and that memory flickered like a warning deep inside her chest. Keanu didn't argue. He simply placed one hand lightly on her shoulder, guiding her closer but not forcing anything. "Then we take it slow," he said quietly, his voice steady like a warm anchor in the wind. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." Her breath caught. The simplicity of his support felt like a door opening, soft, unthreatening, and somewhere deep inside, she stepped closer to the light without even realizing it. The horse leaned forward gently, brushing its nose near her hand. Sandra froze. For a second her old fear surged, sharp and uninvited, reminding her of the fall she once took, the one that left more bruises on her spirit than her skin. Keanu noticed the way her shoulders tensed, and instead of telling her she was safe, he stepped beside her and placed his own hand near the horse's cheek. "He won't move until you do," he whispered. "He's waiting for you just like you've been waiting for yourself." Something inside her shook. The wind picked up, carrying the faint rustle of leaves, and in that sound she felt a strange pull, a desire to trust again. Her fingertips touched the horse's warm coat, hesitant at first, then slowly easing into the rhythm of its breathing. The moment felt fragile, like something inside her might break or finally begin to heal. And just as her hand settled, the horse exhaled softly, a gentle, grounding sound, and she felt her heart respond with the smallest flicker of peace. But that peace lasted only a second, because as soon as she began to relax, Sandra caught sight of the saddle waiting near the fence, and an old memory surged so powerfully that her knees nearly gave way. She stepped back, face pale, breath fractured. Keanu turned instantly, and what he saw in her eyes made his expression change completely. Something deeper was going on, something she never told him, the fear she never spoke out loud. Keanu didn't rush toward her, but his focus sharpened instantly. Sandra's step back wasn't just hesitation, it was something older, something rooted deep, like a wound that had never fully closed. Her eyes weren't on the saddle anymore. They were somewhere else entirely, locked on a memory that tightened her breath and shook her spine. "Sandra," he said softly, taking a single careful step closer, "talk to me." She shook her head almost immediately, lifting her hands as if to push the moment away. "No, I'm fine, it's stupid." But her voice cracked right in the middle of the sentence, and Keanu heard it, felt it. The farm was quiet, but inside her everything was trembling. She braced herself against the fence, gripping the wood as if it was the only thing holding her upright. The horse watched her with calm curiosity, but she couldn't look at it. Her eyes were shut tight, breath uneven, and memories she thought she'd buried long ago clawed their way to the surface. "It wasn't just a fall," she finally whispered. "It was everything after." Keanu didn't move closer, he didn't speak. He gave her space, the kind that makes a person feel seen without feeling cornered. His silence wasn't absence, it was presence in its purest form. Sandra swallowed hard, the words coming slowly, painfully, as if each one carried the weight of years. "I couldn't ride again after that. Everyone kept saying it wasn't my fault, but I couldn't shake it. Every time I got near a horse, I felt the ground tilt under me. And I hated that fear. I hated how it controlled me." Her fingers dug into the fence, knuckles white. "And today," she continued, I woke up feeling like everything was slipping again, like I couldn't control anything in my life, not work, not my emotions, not even myself. And then I saw the saddle and her breath broke. It felt like I was right back in that moment, powerless. The word hung in the air, powerless. That was the core of it, not the horse, not the fall. It was losing control and fearing she would never get it back. Keanu stepped closer, but still slowly, giving her time to react. When she didn't pull away, he gently placed his hand on the fence beside hers. Not touching, just close enough for her to feel he was there. "You don't have to conquer anything today," he said, his voice calm but grounded with certainty. "You're not here to prove you're fearless. You're here to remember you're stronger than the moment that scared you." Sandra opened her eyes, and for the first time since they'd arrived, she looked directly at him. There was exhaustion in her gaze, but also something fragile, the beginning of trust. He nodded toward the horse again, but gently. "We don't ride yet. We'll just walk together, no pressure, no expectations." Sandra hesitated, her heartbeat still loud in her ears. But something in Keanu's expression, steady, respectful, patient, softened the fear clawing inside her. She nodded. They approached the horse side by side, and Keanu kept his pace slow. Sandra reached out again, her hand trembling less this time. When her palm touched the horse's warm coat, she felt a strange rush, not fear, but something like reclaiming a small piece of herself. The horse shifted slightly, stepping forward, and Sandra inhaled sharply. But Keanu's voice steadied her instantly. "I'm right here," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." She breathed out, shaky but real, and let the moment settle into her bones. But just when she began to feel her heartbeat soften, a sudden noise echoed from inside the barn, a clatter, sharp and unexpected. The horse jerked its head, startled. Sandra flinched back, panic flashing across her face. Keanu reacted faster than she expected, grabbing the reins, steadying the horse, and turning toward her with concern. And in that moment, he realized something. The fear inside her was much deeper than he thought, and the next step would test both of them in a way neither expected, the moment that broke her open. The barn fell silent again after the noise, but the damage was already done. Sandra backed away quickly, her breath sharp, her eyes unfocused. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was panic, the kind that arrives without warning, the kind that takes over before a person can name it. Keanu steadied the horse, murmuring softly to calm it, then looked toward Sandra. She stood near the open field now, fingers trembling against her arms, trying to ground herself but failing. He approached slowly, careful not to overwhelm her. "Sandra," he said gently, "you're safe. It was just a bucket falling." But she wasn't hearing the words, not fully. She was trapped somewhere inside herself, pulled into a memory she had avoided for too long. "I felt it again," she whispered, almost to herself. "That moment, that second before I fell, everything inside me just froze." Keanu's expression softened, the concern in his eyes deepening. He sat down on a nearby wooden rail, lowering himself to her level instead of trying to stand above her emotions. "Come here," he said softly. "Sit with me." She hesitated, but her legs gave a quiet shake, urging her to accept the stability being offered. She sat beside him, looking out at the quiet fields stretching endlessly ahead. The sunlight reflected on the distant hills, warm and steady, the opposite of what she felt. For a long moment, neither spoke. Sometimes silence is the only language that doesn't make the heart feel accused. Finally, Keanu exhaled slowly. "You know," he began, his voice low and thoughtful, "most people think courage is about jumping back in, but real courage is when you show up even while shaking." Sandra's eyes glistened. "I'm tired of shaking, Keanu." He turned to her. "Maybe the shaking isn't a weakness. Maybe it's a reminder of what you survived." That sentence hit her with unexpected force. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down before she could stop it. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed, but Keanu's expression didn't change. There was no judgment there, only understanding. "I didn't tell anyone how bad the fall was," she said. "I got up, laughed it off, told everyone I was fine, but something inside me cracked. I never admitted it, not even to myself." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes pretending we're okay becomes a habit we can't break." She breathed in deeply, her chest tight. "I didn't want to be dramatic. I didn't want people to see me differently, so I hid it, and now it controls me anyway." Keanu looked out toward the horses grazing in the distance. "Pain you hide," he said quietly, "gets heavier. Pain you face becomes lighter even when it feels impossible at first. Sandra followed his gaze. The fields were calm again, the breeze softening. Something inside her shifted, not into peace yet, but into honesty. "What if I try," she whispered, "and I freeze again?" "Then I'll be right there," Keanu said. "If you fall, I'll catch you. If you stop, I'll stop with you. You don't have to heal alone." Her breath stilled. Those words, no one had ever framed healing like that for her. She always assumed courage meant being alone. But here he was offering the exact opposite. For the first time that day, she felt her shoulders loosen just a little. Keanu stood and offered his hand. "Come on, not to ride, just to walk beside them. One step, that's it." She stared at his hand, steady, grounded, patient. And she reached for it. Their hands met, warm and sure, and together they stepped toward the horses once more. Sandra's heartbeat was still loud, but this time it didn't drown her. She walked closer, eyes steadying, breath deepening. But just as she began to regain control, something unexpected happened. The farm's owner, an older man with a weathered face and serious tone, approached with urgency. "Keanu," he called out, "we've got a problem. One of the horses is missing, and he's not the calm one." Sandra froze. Keanu tightened his grip on her hand. The day meant for healing was suddenly turning into something far more dangerous. The missing horse and the truth she could hide. The farm owner's voice sliced through the calm air, and Sandra felt her chest tighten again. A missing horse, and not a calm one, was the last thing she expected to hear. She glanced at Keanu, searching his expression for any sign of alarm. But he stayed steady, grounded, the same way he had been since the moment they arrived. His hand didn't loosen around hers. "What do you mean missing?" Keanu asked, keeping his tone steady but attentive. The owner wiped sweat from his forehead. "Gate on the north side must have swung open. Storm winds from last night loosened the latch. He's probably out near the lower field. He's jumpy today. Something must have spooked him earlier." Sandra felt a chill. She wasn't afraid of the horse. She was afraid of herself, of what panic might do to her again. She took a small step backward, the old instinct pulling her away. Keanu turned to her immediately. "Hey," he said softly, "you're okay. You're not alone here." But she shook her head. "Keanu, I don't know if I can handle this. I barely managed to touch a calm horse today, and now—" "You're not responsible for calming him," Keanu interrupted gently. "You're not expected to fix anything. We'll just walk, that's it." The owner looked between them, concerned. "I can go alone if it's too much," he offered. But something inside Sandra shifted, a small, stubborn spark she didn't recognize at first. It wasn't bravery, but it was a refusal to keep letting fear dictate her every move. "No," she said quietly. "I want to understand what scares me. I don't want to keep running." The owner nodded and headed toward the open fields, leaving the two of them to follow at their own pace. Keanu watched her closely, not with pressure but with respect. "You're doing something harder than riding," he said. "You're facing yourself." Sandra managed a faint, weak smile. "I don't feel strong." "That's usually when people are strongest," he replied. They walked side by side toward the lower field. The air felt different here, thicker, quieter, waiting. The trees rustled with a gentle warning, and the tall grass moved with an uneven pattern as if something had recently pushed through it. As they neared the fence, Sandra stopped, her breath catching. In the distance, partially hidden by the slope, the missing horse appeared. His chest was heaving, his stance tense, ears pinned back. He wasn't raging, he was scared. Sandra felt that fear echo inside her chest. "He's not angry," she whispered. "He's overwhelmed the same way I get." Keanu exhaled slowly. "Then maybe you see something the rest of us don't." For a moment they simply watched the horse. He pawed the ground, snorting anxiously, trapped in a loop of fear he couldn't explain. Sandra felt a startling familiarity, the shaking limbs, the rapid breaths, the trapped feeling. "I used to think fear controlled me because I was weak," she said softly. "But maybe fear is just a signal. Maybe it's telling me something I never wanted to hear." "What's that?" Keanu asked gently. "That I've been hurting for longer than I ever admitted." Keanu nodded, his voice calm and deep. "And today you're not hiding it, that's strength." She swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the horse. "I want to try something." Keanu raised a brow, but there was no doubt in his expression. "I'll stay right here behind you." She stepped forward slowly, leaving a few feet between herself and the anxious animal. Her heart pounded. Her throat tightened. But she kept going, not because she felt brave, but because running didn't feel like an option anymore. She whispered softly, "Hey, it's okay, you're scared, I get it." Her voice trembled, but it was genuine. The horse lifted its head, recognizing something familiar in her tone. Keanu watched, stunned by the quiet connection forming between them, something unexpected, something raw. But then the horse shifted suddenly, startled by a gust of wind, and Sandra gasped, instinctively stepping back. Keanu moved instantly behind her, steadying her shoulders before she could panic. Her breath hitched, but she didn't collapse. She stayed on her feet. She stayed present. Keanu smiled faintly. "You didn't run, you didn't freeze, you stayed." And then Sandra realized something, not about the horse, but about herself. She hadn't come here to ride. She had come here to reclaim a part of herself she thought was lost. But just as this truth began to settle inside her, the horse jerked again, backing dangerously close to a low ditch behind him. The owner shouted from across the field, "Watch out if he slips." Sandra's heart dropped. If the horse fell into that ditch, he could injure himself badly, and the moment demanded a decision she wasn't sure she was ready to make, the choice she never thought she could make. The shout from the owner cut through the field like lightning. Sandra's breath vanished. The horse, already trembling with fear, backed closer to the ditch, its edge crumbling with each step. One wrong move and the animal could injure a leg or worse. The danger wasn't dramatic, it was real. Keanu reacted first, scanning the slope, calculating every possibility. But he didn't move forward, not yet. He looked to Sandra, not expecting her to act, not pushing, but reading something in her face that even she hadn't realized was there. She wasn't frozen. She was focused. Fear was still inside her, shaking her bones. But something stronger was rising right beside it. "I know that feeling," she whispered, staring at the trembling horse. "He's not trying to run, he's trying not to fall." Keanu nodded, his voice steady. "Then what does he need?" Sandra swallowed hard. "Someone calm, someone steady, someone who won't rush him." Her eyes widened, awareness dawning on her like a sunrise she didn't expect. Keanu stepped behind her, close but not touching. "I'm right here," he said softly. "Whatever you choose." The owner called out again, worried. "Don't get too close, he might kick." But Sandra wasn't moving blindly. She was moving with a clarity born from her own battles. She lifted her hands slowly, taking one step forward. Her heartbeat thudded like thunder, but she didn't stop. She walked through her fear like she was walking through smoke. "Hey," she said gently to the horse, her voice trembling but real. "I know you're scared, I know that place. I've lived there too." The horse flicked an ear, eyes widening with recognition, not of her words but of her tone, the quiet truth in it. Sandra continued, breath shaky. "But listen, you're not alone out here, you don't have to fall, I'm right here, just stay with me." She took another slow step, placing herself at an angle where the horse could see her clearly. She lowered her voice even further. "You're okay. I promise you're okay." The horse hesitated, then softened if only a little. Keanu watched with disbelief and quiet pride. He had seen courage many times, but the kind inside Sandra now wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the kind that rewired a person from the inside. But the ground near the ditch shifted suddenly, causing the horse to panic again. It backed up, hooves scraping dangerously close to the edge. Sandra gasped, but then something inside her took over. "No," she said firmly, surprising even herself. "Stay with me, look at me." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't forceful. It was steady. The horse blinked, breathing hard, but stopped moving backward. Sandra exhaled, tears burning in her eyes from fear, from relief, from the realization that she wasn't powerless anymore. Keanu's voice came behind her, soft but filled with awe. "You're doing it, Sandra." She didn't turn. She kept her voice calm, talking to the horse as if talking to the frightened parts inside herself. "One step forward," she urged gently. "Just one, you can do it." And slowly, so slowly, the horse lifted a trembling hoof and stepped away from the ditch, moving onto safer ground. The owner ran forward as soon as the danger passed, grabbing the reins with gratitude and disbelief. "How did you do that?" he asked. Sandra didn't answer. She couldn't. Her knees finally gave out from the emotional weight of what just happened. Keanu was there before she hit the ground, catching her as she fell into him. She buried her face in his shoulder, trembling, not with fear this time, but with release, with the overwhelming truth of what she had just done. "You were incredible," he whispered into her hair. "You didn't save the horse, you saved a part of yourself." Sandra clutched his jacket, tears slipping freely. "I didn't think I could do that." "That's why it matters," Keanu said gently. He held her until her breath steadied, the field around them quiet again, the danger gone. But inside her, something new had begun. A seed of strength that had waited years to grow finally pushed through the soil of her fear. And when she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, Keanu smiled softly. "You're ready," he said. "Ready for what?" she whispered. He nodded toward the horse, the calm one from earlier, now waiting patiently near the fence. Sandra's eyes widened, her breath caught. The ride, the one she thought she'd never face again. And this time, she wasn't trembling, the ride that rewrote her story. The farm felt different now, not quieter, not louder, just aligned. As though something inside the land itself recognized what Sandra had just done. The sky above seemed softer, the breeze gentler, the world finally willing to breathe with her instead of against her. Sandra stared at the calm horse waiting near the fence. The same horse she could barely touch earlier, the same saddle that had sent panic tearing through her chest. But now the fear inside her felt different. It hadn't vanished, but it had loosened. It no longer held her hostage. Keanu walked beside her, giving her space but never leaving her orbit. "You don't have anything to prove," he said gently. "Not to me, not to the horse, not to yourself." She nodded, though her heart fluttered. "I know," she whispered. "But I want to do this, not because I'm fearless, but because I'm tired of being ruled by something that happened years ago." Keanu's eyes softened the way they only did in moments of deep sincerity. "Then let's do it together." They approached slowly. The horse flicked its tail, unbothered, its warm eyes steady and grounded. Sandra rested her palm against its neck, feeling the rhythm of its breathing. She no longer felt like she was touching a memory of fear. She was touching now. Keanu took the reins and positioned himself beside her. "We'll go at your pace," he said. "If you want to stop, we stop." Sandra took a breath, deep, steady, full, and nodded. With Keanu supporting her, she placed her foot in the stirrup. Her hands trembled, but not with panic, with transformation. She pushed off the ground, lifted herself gently, and settled onto the saddle. The moment her body touched the seat, everything inside her went utterly still. Not frozen, not terrified, just still. She closed her eyes, let a full breath move through her, heard the soft sounds of the farm around her, birds, wind, distant hooves. When her eyes opened again, she wasn't looking backward anymore. Keanu placed his hand on her knee, a grounding, supportive touch. "How do you feel?" Sandra's lips trembled into the smallest, bravest smile. "Like I'm taking my life back." He walked beside the horse as she nudged it forward, slow and gentle. The first steps felt surreal, wobbly, but real. Every shift, every breath from the horse reminded her she wasn't falling. She was moving. A rhythm formed. Her fear softened. Her body settled. Then the most unexpected thing happened. She laughed. A raw, stunned, emotional laugh. One that carried all the years of fear, all the weight she'd been holding, and all the freedom she never thought she'd feel again. Keanu looked up at her, his own smile breaking through, proud, emotional, relieved. "There you are," he whispered. "The version of you that fear tried to hide." Sandra kept riding, her back straightening, her expression softening into something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, real peace. After a few minutes, she pulled the horse to a gentle stop near a hill overlooking the fields. The entire farm spread out before her like a painting, golden, soft, endless. She breathed it in, letting the moment sink into her bones. Keanu reached up, offering his hand, ready to come down. She shook her head, smiling through tears. "Not yet. I want to stay here a little longer. I want to remember this exactly as it is." He nodded, leaning against the fence. "Take your time. This is your moment." Sandra looked out at the land, the breeze brushing her face, her heart finally steady. She didn't think of the past. She didn't think of the fall. She didn't think of fear. She thought of strength, the quiet kind she had rediscovered inside herself. And when she finally dismounted and stepped beside Keanu, she didn't stumble. She stood tall. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu shook his head. "You did the hard part. I was just walking with you." She took a slow breath, looking back at the horse, then at him. "You didn't walk with me," she said softly. "You believed in me before I did." He smiled, the gentle, genuine kind that reaches the eyes. "Then keep that belief with you. It's yours now." The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with soft gold. Sandra leaned her head on his shoulder, letting a quiet, grateful peace settle into her heart. She had come to the farm broken. She left it whole, and the fear that once ruled her. It didn't disappear. It transformed into something she could look in the eye and ride past.